And so that leads us into the sort of, I suppose, overall commonality between all of these methods. You know, in each of these methods, you're producing essentially unstructured, is substrate the word? I'm not sure, but goo, if you want, or at least homogeneous meat type substance. So how do you give that structure? Well, there's a few ways. One of them that would apply across the board, of course, is 3D printing. And I I have a 3D printer over here, which I was going to quickly pan the camera over to, but it has actually finished its print, so it's not doing anything anymore. But the basic theory of that is that you run your substance down a tube into a nozzle, which deposits it on the surface. It draws a two-dimensional shape, and then it lifts it and draws another one, layer by layer by layer, and you build it up that way. So that will give you the shape of the food that you want. And 3D printing food is something that is happening now. I think it's something that will happen a lot more and in a lot more robust kind of way as the technology improves. But at the moment, it's sort of a curiosity. There are some restaurants you can go to that will 3D print you your dessert or 3D print a pizza for you. But most of these are novelties and they require human intervention. There's one of the first dedicated food 3D printers out there that's sort of been brought to market as more than a bespoke machine in a curiosity restaurant is a pancake printer. And so cool. It prints it, prints out your pancake in whatever design you require and whatever additives you want. However, it still requires a human to come in and flip it. And I mean, it's not necessarily 100% desirable to remove the human from the process, but if we're talking about automated food production at a large scale, then we kind of want to minimize human interaction as much as possible. And particularly, I mean, one of the benefits of lab cultured meat is the cleanliness that you can achieve. Because as unpleasant as it is to acknowledge, you know, slaughterhouses are not necessarily very clean places. You've got animals going through traumatic events. You can have fecal matter mixed in with the meat. They're heavily medicated generally. You know, there's lots of antibiotics, and antibiotic resistance is a major problem for medicine in particular.
And steroids as well to make them bigger, to grow muscle mass.
Yeah, exactly. So all sorts of medications and toxins and bacteria, all sorts of contaminants get into our meat production processes. And that's very unfortunate. However, if you're culturing meat from a biopsy that's been taken in a clinical environment, and then that the meat that you're actually packaging up has never actually touched the living animal, then you can control that environment to a very high degree, and you don't need to use medication. You don't need to wash it in any kind of chemical, rub down any kind of pesticides,
sanitizing process and everything.
Exactly.
The ideal would be then to find a sheep, cow, chicken that's like the healthiest possible without any like chemicals thrown into it, just so that the biopsy sample would be as good as it could get.
Exactly, yeah. And if you think about the implications of that as well, if we are getting the majority of our meat from cultured meat, then herd sizes go down massively. That's great for the environment. It reduces the methane output of the livestock, reduces carbon output from transport. And it reduces land use as well. I mean, 95% less land use for a cultured meat production facility, because you don't need massive fields to have these animals on. You don't need to feed the animals the amount of food that they would need to eat. So herd reduction, and I hope when it comes to it that the herds that do exist are allowed to die off naturally. rather than just disposing of them. That would be very unfortunate. But it means that what animals do exist to provide the starter cells for these meat cultures will live in the lap of luxury. They will be kept in wonderful conditions, and be kept very, very well, very happy. So I think, like, ethically speaking, cultured meat is a wonderful thing. Yeah, I can't think of many downsides. I mean, maybe if we're talking about herd reduction, there could be an issue way down the line of, like, genetic stagnation of the existing supply of animals, because the gene pool reduces so much. That could be an issue. And you do need to keep taking biopsies, because the cultured meat, any kind of meat that you're growing for any length of time, of course, can develop cancers. It can have genetic replication errors. And so you have all sorts of problems like that. So you do need to keep cows and pigs, as a thing. But yeah, there's lots of interesting implications for all of this.
Cool, but basically it incentivizes us to keep biodiversity and keep the animals that we eat, or not eat anymore, but use them for supplying the genetic material, to be in as good as possible environment and keep their quality high, which is kind of nice and a humane thing to do.
Yeah, it certainly removes a lot of the humanitarian concerns around veganism and vegetarianism. It'd be interesting to see what percentage of vegans and vegetarians then switch over to eating meat. I mean, I know a lot of them do it for nutritional reasons as well as ethical. So yeah, it'd just be interesting to see how that pans out. The other thing I want to say, though, that it may be obvious to the listeners that when we talk about 3D printing as a solution to the structure problem in cultured meat, that does solve the shape problem, but it doesn't necessarily solve the other issues, such as whether it's under tension, what materials it's in the proximity to, blood flow, and all of that. So that is an issue.
Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see the full version, go to the Uncle Gold Podcast YouTube channel or watch the next clip.